Ready?
Oh.
My name is William Beier. I'm from Indiana originally. I'm living here in Bellevue now. And when I was almost 6 years old, getting ready to start the first grade, I got in a house fire and I had third-degree burns on my back. So I was in the hospital at Lafayette, Indiana, for 7 months, from September until April of 1944. September 43 until April of 44. During that time, my father had a house next to a Ross gear factory in Lafayette, Indiana. My father came from Germany originally, but he said something in the factory, and these redneck people there, they didn't like what he said. He said he didn't want his sons, I had an older brother, he didn't want his sons to go into the army because he had been in World War I army in Germany and see many people killed and poison gas and all that stuff. And that was the wrong thing to say at the time because everybody was super patriotic. So they called the FBI on him, and the FBI wanted to deport him to Nazi Germany, where he would have been mistreated because he was against the war. So anyway, after I got out of the hospital in April, my father had contacted this Roman Catholic brother in close to South Bend, Indiana, Granger, Indiana, a place called St. Joseph's Farm. And the brother, Paulinus Walker, who was the boss of the farm, said that we could come up there and live. It was 100 miles further north. So we lived there for about 14 more years up that farm. And then they had 60 milking, not 60, but 80 milking cows. And they had a creamery right on the farm. The first job I had was working in the creamery when I was 12 years old. But it was a nice place to grow up. They had a lot of apple trees, and they had bees, and they had a lot of honey, and had Concord grapes. And it was a nice place to grow up. It was a nice place to grow up, and then later we moved to South Bend, Indiana, which was about 10 miles away, and there was a lot of Hungarian people in South Bend, Indiana. So, and years later, Joseph Cardinal Mincinti of Hungary came to South Bend, and I got to meet him. That was kind of interesting. There were many people in South Bend. Joseph Cardinal Mincinti of Hungary had been tortured by the communists in Hungary when they took over. I have kind of always been interested in politics, and I was interested in Ronald Reagan when he was getting ready to run for president. Well, in 1975, 5 years before he did run for president, so I wrote him a letter, and I got a reply from him. But anyway, that's it. Ready? And President Richard Nixon went to the People's Republic of China in February 1972. But I thought it was a great thing because at that time, China and Russia had 1 million soldiers on the China border. They're about ready to go to war with each other, I think. And Nixon kind of made a pragmatic gesture, Russia had 2,400 nuclear missiles aimed at the United States. So becoming friends with China was kind of a good thing back in those days. But now things have changed a little bit. But anyway, so I supported Nixon's trip to China even before he went there, months before he went there. But there are different groups who didn't want him to go to China. One was the John Birch Society. I'll play a tune that I made up myself, Rockabilly's Blues. Thank you very much. John Birch, a lot of people don't know who John Birch was. John Birch was born in India, but he came to this country as a little baby. His parents were Christian missionaries in India. When he grew up in Georgia, became a man, he decided to become a missionary to China. So he went to China about the time when the Japanese were trying to take over China. And he happened to meet the man from the Flying Tigers, General Chenault. Met General Chenault over there, and although he had no military training, John Birch had no military training because he was trained to be a preacher. General Chenault made him a lieutenant in the U.S. Army, conscripted him into the U.S. Army. And he went on reconnaissance missions and told about how many Japanese ships were coming up the rivers and different things. But about the last day of the war, in 1945, John Birch and a group of nationalist Chinese were on a mission, and they got surrounded by Mao's communists, and they told them to put their guns down. All the nationalists put their guns down, but John Birch refused to put his gun down. So they put about 30 bullets in him, and then they cut his throat. And so years later, in 1950s, a man from Indiana, Robert Welsh, a candy maker from Indianapolis, started up this organization, like a right-wing extremist organization. He was looking for a name for it, so he looked for different things, so he called it the John Birch Society. But John Birch had nothing to do with the John Birch Society. So when I started saying that I was for President Nixon going to China for February 1972. John Birch Society didn't like me. They thought I was a communist or a pinko or something. So I had trouble with him for a while. But it seems like no matter what I do, I'm going to have trouble with somebody. So kind of, that's about it.
To be another Elvis Presley.
Joseph will become another Elvis Presley. Love me tender, love me true.
Good song.
So, thank you for coming and enjoying Very good. Okay. That was in the key of E. That was easy. Let me try one.
That's a bad one.
When I first started playing guitar, I didn't know how to hold the guitar, so I held the guitar like this. That's how I learned how to play it. Okay, here's a song that I tried to teach Pat Boonhouse. On a day like today, we passed time away, riding low in the sand. Know how you laughed when I cried each time I saw the time. They found our letters in the sand. You made a vow that you would always be true, but somehow that vow meant nothing to you. Now my foot and the heartaches every way, but that makes no love letter in I haven't done as much in life as I wanted to accomplish because I never became as rich as I wanted to. But maybe someday I will before I kick the bucket. So that's good. One, two. Play each note twice. Open, 4, 3, 4, 2. Each note twice. 2/4. Okay, there's one more, a little part to it, but it'll take a little while to get on to that. Though. Then it starts on this. So it's second. Well, my advice for young people is to have two cheeks. When somebody slaps you on one cheek, turn the other cheek. Don't fight back all the time unless you have to. I just have watched this movie from a long time ago. It's called The Jackie Robinson Story. He was the first black person to become a national baseball player. And they told him that you have to take a lot of, you're going to have a lot of trouble with people because they wanted all white people into the baseball games. And he did have trouble, but he overcame it. You know, he just took it, and so he became a national hero eventually. And so, don't look for war. Try to look for peaceful solutions, and there's so much trouble in the world right now at this time in 2019. So many different countries that have powerful weapons that if there's not peace, then there's going to be it's going to be worse than earthquakes. And, of course, some people in some countries don't listen. Like I think in Iran, the people there, they got their own ideas and they don't want to change. They're almost inflexible in their ideas. Whereas in other countries, people are more flexible. And so just try to find peaceful solutions to things rather than being belligerent.
Do you want a ball player who's afraid to fight back? I want a ball player with guts enough not to fight back. You got to do this job with base hits, stolen bases, and fielding ground balls, Jackie. Nothing else. Now I'm playing against you in the World Series, and I'm hot-headed. I want to win this game. So I go into you spike first. You tap the ball in my wrist, and the umpire says out. I swear. All I can see is your black face. That black face right over me. So I haul off and punch you right in the cheek. What do? Mr. Ricky, I've got two cheeks. Good.
Well, that's right. It starts on this note, second. Let's try that part. How many people have you interviewed? How did I do? 1 being poor, 10 being really excellent. How would you say?
I will give you a 10.
Yay! You white. Then go back 2. So, yeah. Watch over you, getting it close, close.